Joaquin always liked early mornings best. He liked the pink sky that slowly turned yellow and then blue on clear mornings. When it wasn't clear, he liked the fog that folded into the city like a blanket, curling itself over the hills and freeways so thick that sometimes Joaquin could touch it. He liked the quiet of those mornings, how he could skateboard down the street without worrying about dodging slow tourists or toddlers making a sudden break from their parents. He liked being alone without anyone around him. The aloneness felt more like his choice that way. It was easier than feeling alone while surrounded by people, which was how he always seemed to feel once the rest of the world started to wake up, before the reality settled in and the fog blanket was melted away by the sun. Joaquin leaned his body to the left as he careered down the hill toward the art center. The wheels on his board were new, a just because gift from his 18th set of foster parents. Mark and Linda were good people, but had been his fosters for almost 2 years, and Joaquin liked them. Linda had taught him how to drive on their ancient minivan, ignoring the small dent that Joaquin had put in the back passenger side door. Mark had taken him to 6 baseball games last summer, where they sat next to each other and watched the games in silence, nodding in agreement whenever the ump made the right call. Nice to see a dad and son at the game together, one older man had said to them at the end of one game, and when Mark had grinned and hooked his arm around Joaquin's shoulders, Joaquin had flushed so deeply that he felt almost feverish. So here we could mark a memory moment talking about some of his memories with Mark and Linda, and kind of just shows some of the goodness of their relationship, but then also maybe some of the ways that Joaquin struggles with receiving love from people because it's been so inconsistent in his life. He knew some basics about his early life, but not too many things. He had gone into foster care when he was 1, put there by his mother. He knew from seeing his birth certificate once that her name was Melissa Taylor and that his father's last name was Gutierrez? Maybe. But that had been about 10 social workers ago, and Melissa's parental rights had long been severed. She had never shown up for any visitations when he was a baby. Sometimes Joaquin wondered if he had been the worst baby in the world if his own mother didn't even want to come see him. He didn't know anything. I guess I feel like that could be a tough question too. Again, this feels like a little minor because he's talking about him as a baby, but I feel like that also kind of carries over into him questioning his self-worth and his identity now, even as a teenager. He didn't know anything about his bio dad other than his last name and the fact that Joaquin only had to look in the mirror to know that his mysterious father hadn't been white. "You look Mexican," one foster brother had told him after Joaquin had to explain that he didn't know where he was from. No one had ever said anything to argue against it, so that was that. Joaquin was Mexican. As far as foster parents and foster homes went, they had been good and bad. There had been the foster mom who once lost her temper and whacked Joaquin in the back of the head with a wooden hairbrush, making him feel like one of those cartoon characters who literally saw stars. The elderly couple who, for reasons that Joaquin never understood, would tape his left hand shut, forcing him to use his right. It didn't work. Joaquin was still a lefty. A foster dad who liked to squeeze Joaquin by the back of the neck, literally grinding his vertebrae together in a way that Joaquin could never fully forget. The parents who kept the foster's food on a separate pantry shelf, the generic store brand lined up right below the brand name cereals for the biological kids. So all of this really, even kind of what's about to follow here, could all fall under the idea of a memory moment, because really all of this leads up to the type of person and character that Joaquin is, kind of this defensiveness that he has to other people. He's built up all these walls because he's been really hurt in the past. So all of these memories, even some of the good ones, kind of just show the inconsistency that he's had in his life that has really shaped kind of who he is and the way he acts, the things he says and does, and all of those things. So all of that is shaped by these memories. But then there had also been Juanita, the foster mom who stroked his hair and called him Carino when he had had the stomach flu one winter. Evelyn, who organized water balloon fights in the backyard and used to sing Joaquin a song at night about 3 little chicks who curled up under their mother's wing and fell asleep. And Rick, the foster dad who had once bought Joaquin an entire set of oil pastels because he thought that he was pretty gosh darn talented. 6 months later, after Rick had too much to drink and got into a fistfight with the next-door neighbor, Joaquin had been forced to leave that foster home and his pastels behind. He still wasn't quite over losing them. Mark and Linda were the latest foster parents, and they wanted to adopt Joaquin. So all of these questions are going to shape kind of the way he approaches this question of should he let them adopt him. They had asked him last night when he was sitting at the kitchen table putting his new wheels on his board. They sat down Sorry, I'm gonna have to move these. Boop, boop, boop. They sat down across from him, holding hands, and Joaquin knew immediately that they were asking him to leave. It had happened 17 times before, so he knew the signs well. So this would be again and again. It's something that he's experienced multiple times, so there would be excuses, apologies, maybe even tears. Never Joaquin's, but it always ended the same way. I had marked here, this isn't necessarily something you would mark down in your sheet, but just something to keep in mind. I kind of see this as like a setup for a contrast and contradictions, in the sense of like Joaquin is really putting on this like external strength and like barrier of like, I'm not emotional, like I can't be hurt because I'm like not gonna let you. And so I feel like that's some way we could see him grow as a character, is if later in the book those walls are kind of broken down and maybe he like gets emotional, since it talks about like he would never cry. Again, that's just like me reading. I'm like, oh, I could see that eventually becoming a contrast and contradiction. It isn't yet. We're just learning his character now that eventually could change. But it always ended the same way. Joaquin putting his few things in a trash bag and waiting for his social worker to pick him up and take him somewhere new. Once the social worker had brought him an actual suitcase, but that had gotten ruined at the next house when two of the other kids got into a fight. Joaquin preferred the trash bags. That way he had nothing to lose.